Good afternoon, ice creamers. We are back, and we are back with some super exciting news. It
Yeah.
is your Lucky Limes here with Mr. Cool J himself, Lawrence E. Gibbs.
What's up, ice creamers?
Before we jump into the news, though,
Yep.
I just want to quickly remind our ice creamers out there, please, 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 if you enjoy our content, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Blue Sky. We are
Yep.
also on Facebook. You will not find us on True Social or X, and that's all I'm going to say
No,
about
we are.
that.
And,
X,
and
no.
remember, and remember, gang, remember our lovely ice creamers. Pass us around to everybody you know, like the party favors that we are, because we are the gift that keeps on giving.
See, now you just kind of made that weird.
Isn't that my job? Isn't that my
Well,
job?
yeah. Oh, you excel, brother. You excel. You
Uh,
excel. So let's jump into the news, and it's
yes,
absolutely crazy.
yes.
Hulu has commissioned a reboot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which, unless you have been living under a rock, was one of the absolute greatest shows to come out of the late '90s and early 2000s. Shut your face, you mate. We'll go to war over this one, all right? Yeah, so Hulu has commissioned a pilot. Sarah Michelle Gellar has apparently signed on. She's made that announcement that she signed on. To be clear,
Mm-hmm,
it's a
mm-hmm.
pilot. And as we know in this world of TV, a pilot doesn't necessarily mean a full show. But given the nature of this particular intellectual property, I will bet dollars to donuts that this is going to go to series and do extremely well. Now, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts, Mr. Cool J? Talk to me.
Well, it was an incredibly popular series. It had a tremendous cult following. You'll remember the fanfare when I used to, cover the Comic Cons and what have you.
Mm.
It was a huge, huge success. So for me, if the pilot is happening, which obviously sounds like it is, I see no reason why it won't go to series. You're going to have that fan base from way back when that are going to love that this is getting a reboot. And Sarah Michelle Gellar is obviously coming back. So, you know what? I think it's going to be successful. And, I would foresee no less than 3, 4 seasons, maybe.
And with all these, I mean, let's be clear as well. I mean, this was a show that went out back when pretty much it was just there was network TV and that was it, right?
Yeah.
But now with all these streaming channels now, with Disney, Hulu, Netflix, everybody's looking for an IP that they can latch onto and make money from. I guess it was only a matter of time before they got around to Buffy. My question here is though, I wonder, you know obviously, Buffy's human at the end of the day. She's a slayer, but she's a human.
Mhm.
These characters like Willow, Xander, Giles, Faith, they're all human characters. The one thing that goes through my mind is I wonder how they're going to get it. I mean, there were a lot of hugely popular vampire characters: Spike,
Mhm.
Angel, Drusilla,
Yeah.
Darla. Vampires don't age.
No, that's
I,
going to be the interesting trick.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I could
Yeah.
see Spike and Drusilla coming back because Spike, especially, I mean, James Masters, it's like the man just refused to age. It's like he just looked fate in the face and said, you know what? Nope, I'm not aging. So he's doing he's doing fantastic. And Juliet Lando, she,
Oh, love Juliet Lando. Oh my
oh,
God,
great,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
great actor, and beautiful, beautiful a woman there. And
Yeah.
her character there was always very much um, under like different under lots and lots of makeup, the dark eyes and stuff like that. So I think it'll be super easy to bring her back as well.
But to that point, though, with the technology being the way it is nowadays, I mean, you can have that age regression, CGI. Will they incorporate that? Possibly, because again, like you said, we're dealing with vampires. Vampires don't age. Us mortals We age. Look at this gray. Look at this gray. Look at these wrinkles. Come on.
But yeah. So you actually brought up a really interesting point there, and that was with the de-aging technology. You know what? I got to be honest. I never thought of that. I never considered that. We've seen it. They did it in the X-Men movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of another one, but I know it's been done a bunch of. Hey, maybe they would. Maybe they could take that route. Who knows, right? The one thing I would really like to say about that show, though, I've been
Mm-hmm.
watching. I don't know if you've watched a documentary called. It's actually I say a documentary. It's a documentary series. It's on Crave. It's called The Dark Side of the '90s, and but yeah, it gets into everything from grunge to Baywatch to wrestling. Anything that
Yeah.
was huge gets into all that. But I was watching a particular show where they were talking about Beverly Hills 90210, and they were saying how this show changed the TV landscape in the way that teenagers were depicted.
Yeah.
I I see where they're coming from,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I would say Buffy really, really earns that prize because I mean,
Oh, yeah.
outside of the fantasy stories, the vampire stories, they really opened the door to, they talked about things like, teen parental abuse, bullying and school shootings. I mean, one episode there, Earshot in particular, they actually pull it off the air briefly because it dealt with a school shooting, and as it happened, it was
Yes.
it was
Yes. Yes.
airing right
Yeah.
after Columbine.
Yeah. Columbine.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, date rape, like all these things that they brought
Yeah.
up, and these talking points.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty landmark show.
Yeah, well, a lot of series did that. They incorporated a lot of social commentary of what was going on at that time to raise even more awareness to incorporate that because it's something that did need to be talked about and spoken to with one of the same. So a lot of shows did that and they had to do it as well because again, you're talking about your audience, those that are watching. Yes, they need the escape from what the reality is, and that's why we love entertainment. It is an escape from reality, but as we know, after the golden age, more reality started coming in because the world was changing. So
Mm.
you have to kind of incorporate these social commentaries to kind of again, I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but raise that awareness and start the discussion and for the audience, especially the kids, to say, wow, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one that's feeling this and going through this. Look at
Right.
these characters. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a therapy for them, and again kind of like a safety zone, to again let them know they're not alone. So there was a lot of positive sides to that. Did some of the shows get pretty preachy? Yes. They took it a little too far. Well, not a little too far as what the message was, but kind of being a little too preachy, oversaturating it. A good example to get off horror for a tiny bit: MASH. MASH in its later seasons became heavily social and political commentary, which
Right.
turned off a lot of its fans, especially coming from the movie, which is going to loop around to what we were discussing earlier. And you were like, shut your mouth about what I think, about what I think of the series of Buffy versus the movie.
Yeah, okay, and we will talk about the movie there. But I gotta say, when you talk about the social commentary, yes, sometimes things get preachy, but boy, oh boy, when Buffy was on point with
Mm-hmm.
something,
Yeah.
they really kicked you in the face with a like. I'll give you an example. Did you ever see? And I'm gonna personally, I think it's hands down the best episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I actually think it's one of the greatest episodes of television ever. Like, and I don't say that lightly. Did you
Wow.
ever see the episode The Body?
No, I did not.
Okay. So basically the long and the short of it is there's been a season long thing going on with Buffy's mom. She's been dealing with some sort of a brain tumor. And then at the end of an episode, which goes into the episode The Body. Buffy comes home and her mom, Joyce, is just dead on the couch.
Oh,
And yeah. And so the next episode, there's really no supernatural element. It is just showing how Buffy deals with an enemy that she can't defeat. Like you
yeah.
cannot, for all her power, for everything she's got, for all her magical friends and people, she cannot prevent her mum from dying. And by God, man, like if you ever, even if you only ever sit down and watch 1 hour of that show, that was absolutely brilliant, you know. And it hit, you know, not to get into a too much of a dark place, but obviously, you know, my own sister passed away from a brain aneurysm, so it really hits home to me when I watch it now. But let's lighten things up because I know
All
you
right.
love them. I know you love the movie. All right.
Mhm.
I don't, but you do. So come on. What is it about the movie that you love over the show? Talk to me. Convince me.
Okay, for me, the movie was brilliant. Okay, I loved its humor. I loved its clever dialogue. I loved the characters, and I loved all the actors that were in it. I mean, Christy Swanson, absolutely beautiful. She was talented, and she knew how to deliver comedy, and she knew how to deliver action. The writing was brilliant. And then you had Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, especially his death scene when he got staked. He's like ah and they think he's dead. Ah, and this time he just had a wooden stake in his hand and nothing else. Ha! That's the joke of the day, boys and girls. Ha! I'm sorry. I'm not
Oh my.
sorry. No, I love Paul Rubens. May he rest in peace. I grew up watching him with Pee Wee Herman. I mean, I was kind of an adult already at that time, but he was absolutely phenomenal. You got Rutger Hauer there, David Arquette, and Luke Perry. It was fun. It was lighthearted. It was campy, and it you know it just brought the perfect element to horror comedy for me. So again, I loved the movie, and when the series came out, I was like, "What? Another teen angst series?" Ah, because again, too, I mean, they geared it towards audience. It was a brilliant IP. Okay, great characters, obviously Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all that fun stuff. But it was a series that was more serious. It tried to integrate some comedy and stuff like that at times, but it was too serious. For me, I think the movie was beautiful enough. It was perfect enough. It has the cult following. I enjoyed it. They should have left it alone. Wait, I just did that rant and oh my gosh, I didn't even break a nail.
You're very you're a very angry person.
Oh, and Donald
Tell
Sutherland. Donald Sutherland was in it. I
Oh,
love
yes, he
Donald Sutherland.
was.
Yes.
He was the watcher, the first
And
watcher, right?
yes, yes. And he was
Oh.
awesome. I loved it. Again, the whole cast, the scripting, the directing, everything about it, I thoroughly enjoyed.
So we're gonna obviously have to agree to disagree, because I hate it with a passion. But that's just,
Oh my God.
but no, no, no.
Why? Why, Limes? Why?
For every reason that you said about the TV show was what I loved about the TV show. And the TV show, I gotta correct you on something. You say they threw in a little bit of humor. Dude, it was hilarious for like they
Yeah.
absolutely there was a I think you need to go back and rewatch. But I will say this.
Okay.
But I will say this. Because at the end of the day, we're both Buffy fans. We're two sides
Yeah.
of the same
Oh yeah.
coin, right? And
Yeah.
I will say this. You can do the TV show has a slightly unfair advantage in that what you can do over 7 seasons of what 24 episodes a season, an hour an episode.
Back then, oh yeah. Yeah. Seasons were
Yeah,
way longer back then.
way
Yeah.
longer, right? So what you can do over that time is obviously a lot more than you can do in a 90-minute movie. So I guess for a 90-minute movie, they did good. Um, Going off of Buffy, what were some of your first vampire movies you ever saw?
Well, Count Dracula, of course, 1931.
Uh-huh.
Count Yorga comes to mind. Actually, I wrote a lot of copious notes because I was preparing for the same exact question of some of my favorite vampire movies.
Ah,
Let's get over here. All right. No, no, I do have the list here, but a lot of the vampire movies from the 30s, 40s, were perfect. One of my influences, or one of my most endearing vampire uh, offerings, so to speak, was Dark Shadows.
oh my
That to
God, that
me, I was so enthralled by that series, and that literally set the precedent to what the Buffy the Vampire Slayer is, what Supernatural was, and all those other series dealing with the supernatural. It was the first horror soap opera.
you have completely redeemed yourself, my friend, because I love Dark Shadows, with the
Oh,
exception of the abomination that Tim Burton made, which we
oh
won't
God.
even. Yeah,
Ah,
let's not even talk about that.
ah,
But the
ah.
show, I actually have all of the entire series on DVD, all 1,400 episodes or whatever it was. Yeah,
Oh,
in a coffin shaped box that opens up, and each one of dude, I got to show you this sometime.
yes,
Each
yes.
each one of the spines of the DVDs form Barnabas Collins in the coffin.
Whoa.
It's
Oh, that kicks ass.
beautiful.
That kicks ass.
But
I am seriously fucking jealous right
yo, you will be when you see it.
now. I
You
mean,
will be, man. You will be. But what would you say was the first? Because I know two in particular, but
mhm.
I want to hear from you. What would you say was the first vampire movie or movies as a kid that scared the shit out of you? That really, really put the fear of God into you?
uh, that's really hard to say. There really weren't any terribly frightening ones that I can remember. I just remember a lot of the sexploitation, black exploitation vampire movies like Blackula, and then Scream, Blackula, Scream. You had Count Yorga. There are so many Vampiros Lesbos. I mean, that whole era, it was bloody and it was gory, but that titillation factor, it was definitely you know uh, products of that era. Well, actually, let me go back. The one that I think was one of the most brutals early on that I saw, that I was impressed with, that as a kid I was like, oh, okay, this is wow, kind of scary. Was Hammer Films Dracula with Sir Christopher Lee and Sir Peter Cushing.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that really stands up. That really
Yeah.
holds the. I mean, I believe um, the library scene where the vampiress is she's kind of coming on to Jonathan Harker, and then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden Christopher Lee bursts in and he jumps on.
Yeah.
That's, I believe, studied in film school because it's such a brilliantly um constructed scene and so well edited that
Oh,
it stands the test of time and it holds up against just about anything that comes out now. But I gotta tell you, I there are two in particular that really did scare me as a kid, and I'm not kidding. Really shit me up. The first one was a movie called Let's Scare Jessica to Death. I don't know if you've
my
ever
gosh. Yes.
have you seen that one? Remember
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
this? Remember the scene where the on the lake and the woman just comes walking out of the water? That creepy ass looking. Oh my God, dude! I
Yeah.
This is a fact. I
Uh-huh.
had the worst fucking nightmare when, like, to the point where I screamed the house down, and my mom and dad come out the night
Damn.
because
Damn.
that really played on, and I almost lost my horror movie privileges off of that. I think it was like they were really like, yeah, I don't think you need to be like, I'm like, no, 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 please. It was a
Yeah.
blip
Yeah.
on the radar, right? But the other one that scared me, and I don't think vampires have ever been done scarier,
Mm.
is the miniseries, the 1979 adaptation of Salem's Lot, the two-part there,
Oh, okay.
David
Yes.
Stahl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good God, they really, those things were that, you
Yes.
know, with taking away all the romantic stuff about vampires,
Hmm.
if they were real, that would be what it would be, a shambling dead thing that
Yeah.
is not romantic, is ugly as sin, and is savage, you know?
Yes.
But
Yes.
come on, you must have liked Salem's Lot.
Oh, I did. I did. Forge Time. Even though unfortunately Stephen King is a brilliant writer, but the made-for-television movies did not do him justice. Did not do him justice. Did not do the stories justice. Salem's Lot, it was kind of, for me, was kind of cheesy. It was, but I loved it because they made the vampire into the more the Nosferatu
Yeah.
looking vampire, scary, frightening, animalistic, and like you said, brutal. That to me was the way it should have been done, and I'm so glad that they did that.
And James Mason
Oh,
as
James Mason, brilliant. Oh yes.
Richard Throckett Striker, like
Mm-hmm.
he was like, oh my God, he just that that sinister, that understated, like literally he could go from the smile to just this iciness that just, even though he was the human servant,
Uh-huh.
you knew that this guy was lethal. This guy was
Yes.
was like a murderer, right? Was a true murderer. Getting into, obviously, more of like the 80s. There was a big vampire boom in the 80s there, right? I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
Lost Boys, Vamp, Near
Yes.
Dark,
Yes.
Once Bitten. Like I can't even, like, there's so many that what are some of your favorites from the 80s?
Well, every one of those that you mentioned, really. Also, what I think the Nicolas Cage one, uh, what was it? Vampire's Kiss. What that was 80s as well, right?
I was right on the tail end. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, yes. And for me, it was very bizarre, but an intriguing, very intriguing movie because you saw the madness and uh, and Nicolas Cage did a phenomenal job seeping into that madness of becoming the vampire and just him getting unhinged, just losing it. I love that one. And also, Jen, Jenna Genove and David Bowie's The Hunger.
Oh my God, yeah, I completely forgot that. Yeah, that
Yes,
was, yeah, and that was very stylish. That was a
yes.
very stylishly done. Was that Ridley Scott that directed, or Tony Scott that directed that? Who am I
Ooh,
wrong there? We
we'll
got to
have to
look
Google
that.
that one. We'll have to Google that
I'm pretty sure it was Tony Scott, but I could be wrong. But
one. Hmm.
yeah, for me though, Near Dark. I just love that film
Near
to
Dark,
death.
yes, yes. With Wild Bill Paxton
Oh,
and Lance Henriksen.
talk about a cast where nobody let the side down. Yeah, Paxton was off the hook. He was so great in that.
Yeah,
When he kills the dude in the bar and he's like, it's finger licking good. Like, like
yeah,
that's like, you hate him, but you love him at the same
yeah.
time. But yeah, Lance Henriksen was incredible. Jeanette Goldstein, all of those
Hmm.
crew
Yeah,
from
yeah.
from 80s. Do you know who I found was a real standout in that movie though? And it's not who you'd necessarily think. And that was Tim Thomerson, who played
Oh my
Caleb's
God. Yeah.
dad. Because this is a guy that, his bread and butter was as a stand-up comic,
Hmm.
right?
Originally,
And when
yes.
it exactly, and whenever you
Yeah.
see him in movies, he's kind of like Jack Death in the Trances movies, and Doll Man. He's always got that kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of edge.
Yeah.
But he played in Near Dark. He played that so beautifully understated as
Hmm.
the distressed dad looking for his son that's gone missing. That, like,
Yeah.
man, like I would love. That's a guy I'd like to interview at some point on the show. If hey Tim,
Yeah,
if
that
you're
would be
watching
awesome.
iScreemZ, get on the show with us. We want to talk to you because we love you, man.
Yes.
But what about Lost Boys? Where do you sit on Lost
Oh
Boys?
my God. Lost Boys to me is one of the most endearing cult classic, best and most well done vampire movies of all. Truly, truly. I loved everything about it. And who did not want to be Kiefer Sutherland as the vampire?
It was pretty cool.
Rock and roll vampires, baby, living the rock and roll life. And vampires is all about rock and roll. No
But
rules,
let's
baby. No
but let's
rules.
let's let's be
I
honest, though, man.
I loved
We
it.
want
I loved it.
we all wanted to be the Lost Boys. I mean, I remember
Oh yeah,
coming out of that movie with my sister, and when it 87, I believe, and we were just
yeah,
so blown. And we were totally gothy at that point. Like
yeah,
we would go to fancy dress parties, me and her, and we would dress up as vampires, and nobody would understand. Sorry, I'm digressing here. Nobody
yeah,
would
yeah.
understand how we did the fangs because what we used to do, and I don't try this at home, kids, but we would get false nails and we would file them down and attach them to our canines with crazy glue, which is probably a stupid thing to do, but
Nice.
whatever. But people would come up to us and be like, "How did you guys? What the hell?" Like, and we did all the makeup immaculate.
Yeah, yeah.
But enough with my digression there. Yeah, we all wanted to be the Lost Boys, right?
Oh
When
yeah,
we were that,
oh yeah.
and the
And it's funny.
music.
Oh, and it's funny because Bill S. Preston Esquire was one of the vampires. That was one of his first movies in Lost Boys.
That was right. Yeah, that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that
From Bill and
that
Ted.
dude.
Yeah.
Did you know? And you probably did. But
Uh,
I'm just, I was a Fangoria kid, just like you probably were a Fangoria kid as well, right?
oh yeah.
But did you know that originally was when the script was originally knocking around for Lost Boys? It was originally an update or offshoot of Peter Pan. Did you know that?
No, I did
Yeah.
not.
The point was that that's where the title, The Lost Boys, comes from,
Oh,
because
that's right. Shit, that's right. Yes.
that was Peter Pan's gang, right? But it actually, so they kept the title, but the actual first drafts of the script were showing it was I guess the story probably would have been essentially the same, but the
Hmm.
lead character was Peter Pan, and this is the reason they didn't grow up. They were vampires, right?
That
Yeah.
would explain it.
Uh-huh. Craziness, craziness. It
It
was
was incredibly stylish. And again, a very, very well done. I think a brilliant resurgence of vampire movies, where vampire movies needed to go. It truly did. And it spoke to our generation because our generation was about, yeah, man, rock and roll, sex, drugs, rock and roll, live hard, live fast, and leave a beautiful corpse.
and you're right. You're absolutely, you know what, and I think maybe it tapped into that energy because we were Cold War kids, right? We were growing up in the
Yeah.
80s when we literally, and I mean, I think you'll agree with me on here. We didn't think we had a future. Like
Yeah.
we really had days where we thought any second, this is it, it's done. And I think that's what really created that energy, that fuck it, we need to enjoy
Yeah.
ourselves, blast the music, have fun,
Yeah.
have sex, drink,
Oh,
do
yeah.
drugs, whatever. I'm not
Yeah.
condoning all this, but it is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
um
That was us, man. Yeah. And the two Coreys, I mean, the two Coreys did a brilliant job, and there were several movies that in which they were in, and unfortunately, Corey Haim, lost his battle with things that he was
yeah,
dealing with at such a
yeah.
young age. But both of them, both of the Coreys, were brilliant, and their chemistry on screen and how they played off each other was magic. It really was.
Tell me that is not one of the greatest endings ever, when grandpa comes in and the stake, the wooden things come out of his truck. They
Yeah.
kill.
The
and
main
everyone,
vampire, yeah.
they kill the main guy there, the main
Yeah.
vampire, and everyone's just looking at him, and he walks up to the fridge. One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn
God damn.
vampires. Fade out. Bow,
And the
bow,
look on their
bow, bow.
face. Yeah, the
Yes.
look on their face was like,
Oh God. Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh. We got to talk about Fright Night.
Oh,
Fright
Fright
Night.
Night, of course. Yes. Fright Night. Oh my God, yes. One of them on my list. Let me take a look here. Why, yes, that's right. Fright Night is here. I love
How
Fright Night.
brilliant. How brilliant. Give me, because I'm going to gush. You know, I'm going to gush because I'm that
Yes.
kind of person. Give me your gush first on Fright Night. Talk to me about Fright Night. Talk to me how you felt about it.
Uh, oh my gosh, where to begin? Evil Eddie. Evil.
Christian, you're
Evil.
so cool.
And Chris Sarandon as the vampire. Oh my God. Now I'm spacing on the name. Dandridge.
Jerry
Jerry
Dandridge.
Dandridge. Jerry Dandridge. Uh, he, he had he had that ferocity. He
Mm.
also had that sexiness. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
He had that charisma, that animalism. He was very cold. He was brutal, but he was also very charming.
Very charming.
Very
Very
charming.
charming.
And one of our favorite actors, Roddy McDowall.
Oh man.
Yes. Yes.
I'd have to say that
Peter
those
Vincent. Front.
welcome to Fright Night. Those two were so those two actors, Roddy McDowall, Chris Sarandon, those I think that was one of the best pairings of vampire and
Yes.
vampire hunter since the days of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing because you have that ferocity, that evil, just fierceness of Chris Sarandon's the Jerry Danbridge character, and
Yep.
then Roddy McDowall's Peter Vincent. Even though a little bit more on the meeker scale, he was, I think, modeled after Peter Cushing's Van Helsing.
Yeah, yeah. But the beautiful thing is, and when you talk about the meeker scale, I think that's what gives Peter Vincent such a wonderful character arc because this is a guy that he's just a TV presenter pretending to be a
Yes.
vampire hunter, right? But then he has to step up and live up to the part. And watching him, go through that journey through the movie to
Yeah.
show that he really does have that heart and that
Yes.
courage. Like
Yeah.
remember on the stairs when he tries to
Yes.
use the cross, and then
Yes.
Dandridge is like, "You have to have faith for that to work on me, Mister Vincent." And then
Yes.
he
Yes.
gets the fight, and it's
Uh-huh.
driving him like, oh, what? Like, it actually is kind of a bit of makes me a bit misty eyed when I think about it.
Uh-huh.
But something else that I noticed about Fright Night, Dandridge, you talk about Jerry Dandridge. This was the first time I think I'd ever seen a vampire where he was cutting off the heads of the people that he bit so that
Mm-hmm.
they didn't rise again.
Yes.
Remember there you get the news reports of the headless
Yes.
bodies? He's only allowing the people to rise that he wants to. Whereas in many of these older movies, they just bit and bit and bit and bit, and people were
Yeah.
turning left, right, and center, right? And
Right. The reason being is because he's the alpha male. He is the originator. He doesn't want anyone encroaching on his territory and his domain. Why create more hungry mouths to feed?
this is a valid point. This is a valid point. Got bills to pay, got mouths to feed.
And
Oh
plus, with the
God.
vampire wives, Dracula wives, I mean, who wants multiple nag, 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 nag?
I think the less I go down that path, the better.
I'm kidding, all
um,
wives out there. I'm kidding. Love you. Mean it.
here's another one. Here's a different. Here's a little bit of a different question for you. Do
Yes.
you have a worst TV show or movie, a vampire, like one that you, and I'm not going to get into Buffy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you have a one you particularly can't stand?
Oh man, I don't know if really can't stand is appropriate, but seriously disappointed. And you mentioned it earlier, Tim Burton's Dark Shadows.
No,
I
you
just for me, and I love Tim Burton. I love Johnny Depp. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. The whole cast, love them. And for what it was entertaining. But it totally, for me, trampled on the nostalgia of our childhood with Dark Shadows with Jonathan Frig, and what that brought to the table. It made it a parody unnecessarily. I mean, when I heard Dark Shadows was coming back, okay, and that Tim Burton was going to be directing, I was hoping that he was going to take the darker tone. And even with Johnny Depp, because again, I love Johnny Depp, I do, but it was that era where he overdid the characters. It was way over the top and too much makeup. That to me wasn't Dark Shadows. I wish they would have called it something else and had different character names. It was just seriously disappointing for me. It really was.
You are a lot more magnanimous than I am, my friend, because I'll tell you, I think that was an absolute pile of shit. And actually, it made me angry because first
Yeah,
of all, yes, Tim Burton's, done some absolutely great stuff. But at the same time, when I read that the guy hasn't even watched an episode of the show and then he's doing a movie, it's like you're playing with action figures. You like the way the characters look, but you're
yeah,
going to do your thing. And that to me was like, I didn't go see it because right off the bat, I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm dropping money at
yeah.
the box office for this. But it came on, I guess, one channel one night, late one night, and I thought,
Yeah,
okay,
I
I'll
think
take a
HBO had it way back. Yeah,
right, something like that. And I took a peek at it and I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, you have absolutely zero idea why this was good, why this was a phenomenon. And good night. When I say good night, I had to stop myself because I almost put my boot through the TV screen. I stopped myself and I just switched the TV up. But no, I hated that. Can I tell you the vampire thing that I really drives me up the wall
yeah. Please,
outside of Dark Shadows? True Blood.
True Blood. You
True.
didn't like True Blood?
I've never seen a show go so quickly into the crapper in my entire life. The first season of it,
Yeah,
this is the crazy part. I
yeah,
loved it. I thought the
yeah,
first season was
yeah,
phenomenal,
yeah.
right? It was a little bit like almost like Twin Peaks, but with vampires, like set in this
Yeah,
little town,
yeah,
Bontham or whatever the town was.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I dug it. Then I
yeah,
watched the
yeah.
second season and I was all right. Okay.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
little too much sex. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm all about, yeah, sex
There
is
can
fine.
never be too much sex. Come
There's gotta be a point to it though, right? Like
on. Yeah, no, true, true, true.
there can be too much. And that was where that was. And then right when but I was still enjoying the story. But I gotta
Yeah,
tell you,
yeah.
right at the middle of the second season, for
Uh,
me,
yeah, I'll give you that. It was a series that went on too long. I loved it. I loved it for the first couple seasons, even maybe into the third, but it was getting kind of tired. I did. I mainly came back because I loved the characters. I loved the characters. What was it? Alex Skarsgård, right?
yep.
I loved him as Eric. He was one of my favorite characters. And then you had and I love the series. I should know. Ah, the black gay character, the cook.
Oh, Lafayette.
Lafayette. Thank you. I don't know why I forgot Lafayette, but Lafayette, you gotta love him.
I
He
did.
was such an entertaining freaking character. He really was. Those two were my favorite. But when you brought up True Blood, how much you hated it, that brought back what I should have said was what I hated was the fucking Twilight series. Fucking Twilight. You don't have sparkly, just self-absorbed vampire whiny little bitches. You don't. I hated them. I
Not
hated
just
them.
the,
And then the werewolves. I think we were talking
yeah,
when we were talking about the
the
Wolfman.
fucking
Same thing with
dogs,
True
man.
Blood. Same thing with True Blood. You don't just they're not wolves. They're werewolves. They're lichens. They don't turn into fucking dogs.
Oh my God.
You know what? I hated it. Twilight, it had its audience. Okay, the teenage girls, falling in love. Oh my God, blah blah blah, whatever. Ugh! You
It
don't make
was.
vampires like that. You
It was
don't.
it. It was. No, I
Hated it.
tried. I tried to. I actually did try to give it a little shot one night, and it's like, yeah, no, no, I'm done. I can't. This is garbage. Um,
Yeah,
but
it is.
but but getting back to True Blood for a second,
Yes, yes.
you want to talk about things jump the shark. Look, for me, the show jumped the shark right at season 2, but whatever.
Mm,
I
yeah,
did try to give season 3 a go, and I was done with the minute they brought the werewolves in and they were fucking dogs. I was like, that's I'm out. But brother,
yeah,
Suki was a fucking fairy. They revealed that she was a like.
yeah,
Who thought that was a good script move? Who thought that was a good story idea? Like it, I mean, it was bad enough that as the show went on, it turned out everybody was something. One was a shape changer,
yeah,
the one's a werewolf, this and the other.
yeah,
But then they turn around and the lead character's a fucking fairy, man. Like,
yeah, yeah.
what is this? Lord of the Rings with vampires? Like,
Yeah, they brought in every supernatural type of creature, every folklore type of creature. They had to do something. But and like we said, the series just ran on too long.
what about mod? Well, okay, so what about and I'm going to say within the last sort of 15, 20 years, like once we got into the new millennium,
Yes, yes,
what
yes.
are what would you say are maybe one or two favorites of recent times?
Well, let me go back to my copious notes here.
Please do.
Yes, here we go. Here we go. From Dusk Till Dawn, Dracula 2000, John Carpenter's Vampires,
Okay.
and also looking here, Renfield with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Howe, and even more recently, the brilliantly done Abigail.
Oh yeah, you was talking right. Okay. Before you, I first of all, I did listen. I'm not opposed to watching Abigail. I will. That's the one with the
You have
ballerina,
to.
right? That's the ballerina vampire, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes.
I actually did back in when that was released, I guess right about May or some such of last year,
Mm-hmm.
whenever it was. I
Yeah.
actually did. I was at a loose end on a Monday night and I went to the theater to say, you know what, I'm going to see if I can. All right, whatever. I'll take a look at Abigail. And the theater was closed. And that was the only reason I didn't. But talk to me. Why do I need to see? Why do I need to make that a priority?
Because it was so original. It was so originally done. It takes everything you know about vampires and just ratchets it up a notch. It really does. And let me get the actress's name here. Sorry, Alicia Weir. Alicia Weir as Abigail for such a young actress, and she's actually a classically trained ballerina. She owned she owned not only that character but the movie. She stole the scenes, and just her portrayal, how she could be this sweet little innocent girl, and she draws you in like, oh my God, don't hurt me, please. And then she just brings out the beast, the monster, in such not only a vicious way but such a dark, sadistic way, comically sadistic, entertainingly sadistic. I just love this movie. I just loved this movie. I really did. You have to watch it. Everybody, all you ice creamers, if you have not watched Abigail, I swear to you, you're going to absolutely love it. You're going to love it just as much as I do. And trust me when I tell you that she is a young lady who loves to play with her food.
Oh my God. I see what you did there. That's interesting. You know what? We're actually getting slammed by a snowstorm right now. I might throw it
Oh,
on this afternoon and take a peek. I might, yeah, I might have a look there. What about it's funny you mentioned Dracula 2000.
mm-hmm. Wes Craven.
Right. I thought that had I like that one a lot. It almost felt a little comic booky in the way that it almost felt like it kind of was ripped from the pages of the old Marvel's Tomb of
Mm-hmm.
Dracula. Like a
Yes,
very,
yes,
very cool. But I loved they it's very hard to do a good twist in movies these days, right? Like
yes,
because so many things have been done before, right? But I loved the twist that Dracula,
yes,
it turned out, was Judas Iscariot. And
yes.
that was why the aversion to silver and
Mm-hmm.
such, and the fact that he's, that's the suicide. That's why he's immortal.
Yes,
That I did not see coming, and I actually kind of sat in my seat and was like,
yes.
"You pulled off a
No,
good one."
absolutely. Absolutely. And, Gerard Butler, one of his first movies, did a phenomenal job. He had again that sexiness, that charisma and that ferocity as well. And just his presence, he owned every scene and just the vibe he put out as that character. And again, Wes Craven knows how to craft horror. He does, and in a very sleek fashion, very chic. Really, he and Christopher Plummer as Van Helsing, and that twist was brilliant.
Yes, he well, refresh me. He had leeches with Dracula's blood, and was he injecting himself with the blood to keep
Correct.
him?
He
Yeah.
had to be the keeper for eternity to make sure that Dracula could never, infest the world again.
You talk about sexiness. I'm sorry you brought it out, but like
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Jerry Ryan since Voyager when she's Seven of
Oh
Nine. I
yes.
mean,
Oh my God. Yes.
she's a great actor. I
Yes.
adore her though. She's a beautiful. Seeing her as a vampiress, I was like, yeah, bite me, please.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That would be my death right there. I'd be, I wouldn't stand a chance. I'd be done. I'd be out of the movie. But I want to hit you with one. Have you seen Blood with Michelle Monaghan and Skeet Ulrich?
Oh, okay. My bad on that one. Damn.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you got to watch this.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm not gonna. I don't mind throwing spoilers in for movies that are
Okay.
decades old because whatever. If you haven't seen if you haven't seen it over the decades, whatever. But this is a new one, so I'm not going to spoil it. But I'm going to give you the
Okay.
gist. I'm going to give you the gist. It deals with a mom, Michelle Monaghan's character. She's a recovering kind of alcoholic, drug addict,
Mhm.
and she's moved out into the house in the middle of nowhere with her two kids. And she's separated from Skeet Ulrich. He's the dad. And the long and the short, the kid, one of the boy goes out with, he's got the dog out there, and they discover this weird tree in the middle of like a swamp or something.
Huh.
The dog
Okay.
is attracted to it. When it comes back, again, I'm not this is only
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
from the trailer, right? When the dog suddenly turns up and it's like the eyes are glowing and what have you, and it attacks the kid, attacks the boy, and they take him to the hospital. He's vitals, he's dying basically,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, when nobody's looking, he grabs one of the blood bags which he's being transfused with, and
Hmm.
bites into this thing and starts drinking it. And she obviously sees this and gets, oh my God, she comes to the conclusion, oh my God, the kid needs, there's something going wrong here. He needs to
Yeah.
drink blood. And the gist of, and that's it. That's all I say. But the gist of it, it's one of
Okay.
those movies of, because you're a dad like I'm a dad, right? And
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
what you wouldn't do for your kids, right?
True. True.
This is the ultimate. It's a great vampire film, but it's also that how far would you go for your children's lives? But it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Blood. Skeet Ulrich, Michelle Monaghan. That's your homework. You got to watch it.
Okay,
You
yeah,
go.
I'm surprised that that I haven't seen it because I got Netflix. I'm always flipping through stuff to try to find something good because just like with all the streaming channels, you got 10,000 titles,
Yeah.
most of it's shit. And all the good stuff you've already watched. And very rarely will you come across something that catches your eye. You see the trailer and like, wow, that looks really cool. And it ends up being a gem.
You talk about titles. Sorry. You just brought back a memory. Oh my God. I gotta tell you this. So it must have been like 96, 97. My brother was out visiting, and this is vampire related. So we're sitting up, and again, this is back when it was cable TV, no streaming, and you're just
Yeah,
flicking
yeah.
through, finding things late at night. And my brother and I are flicking through, and we come across this movie that's just starting on one of these channels, and it's like a Euro trash vampire movie from like the 60s, 70s, and it was, I don't know, it was Hungarian or whatever it was, right?
Uh-huh.
The title comes up on, like, it was really weird. The title comes up for the movie, and it's in the native language,
Uh-huh.
and then the translation comes up, and the title of the movie was, the way it translates, the translation was "The Horrible Sexy Vampire." I don't think you can come up with a better title than "The Horrible Sexy Vampire." And
No, that sounds pretty horrible.
bro, we just looked at each other and we are like, "Fuck, we gotta watch this." Like, yeah, how
Well,
can you resist that? Like,
well, totally. Well, again, all those movies from that era, especially from like, Hammer, American Zoetrope, I believe, some of those really older independent studios and
yeah,
some that were, again, in Europe, like you were talking about, what have you, it was nothing but sex, vampirism, which again is synonymous, and that is kind of the mystique of vampirism throughout the ages. It is that sensuality, that forbidden fruit, but it was all of that was a product of that era, that generation. Everybody was dropping acid, shrooms, whatever, and you had all the psychedelic type of cinematography, and it literally was an explosion of sexploitation vampire movies.
yeah. And you know what? That's. I mean, we could talk about this for, like, we could do a 3 hour show on this, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, we're only scratching the surface of vampires, but I guess that's a nice segue to kind of bring us to a sort of a wrap up of the show, and that is, why do you think, out of, I mean, horror is so vast. I don't
It is.
think
Yeah.
people, I remember I went out on a date with a woman last year where she's like, "Oh, I don't like horror," and you say, "Well, why don't you like horror?" It's like, "Well, Freddy, Chucky, and all," and that's all people think, but they
Yeah.
don't realize that. Hang on, like, fairy tales, like horror, like
Yeah.
Red Riding Hood. This is the first werewolf story, right? Like this,
Yeah.
it's such a broad thing. So, of all the subgenres of horror,
Hmm.
all the revenants, the zombies, the mummies, the werewolves. Why do you think that the vampire subgenre is just never goes away? It just got it's so enduring. Why do you think that is?
Well, because like the creatures themselves, they are immortal. They are eternal. And it's something that we as mortals wrestle with and we crave. Who wouldn't want, I mean, obviously, if you're not overtaxed like we are here in California, who wouldn't want to live forever and be
Right.
able to afford to? But that immortality, growing up as a kid, I kind of idolized vampires, especially Dracula, not the ones that were like, the really deformed, horrific creatures, but not the ultra sexy ones like what was his name? You mentioned him in Dracula, the French actor. Oh my
In
God.
in Dracula?
Yeah, one of the vampire Louis Jourdan.
Oh, right. Okay.
Louis
Okay.
Jordan. To me, he wasn't Dracula. Okay, I'm sorry, he wasn't Dracula. He was like, I'm Louis Jordan. I'm Dracula. Oh, look at me. So not that type of vampire, but I regress. I idolized the vampires because they were immortal. They were powerful. They had a tragedy, but they were also fierce at the same time. They had that sensuality, and again, to be able to live through the ages and to see the changes, to experience life as it evolved, as it changed. I mean, vampires will, like vampires themselves, unless you put a stake through their heart, will never die
They're gonna keep going. They're
because
gonna keep going.
it is that immortality. We wrestle. We are afraid of our own mortality. Where vampires, again, they are immortal. They live forever,
You
and
know,
that to me is why we're so attracted to them.
you know, I hate to sound like cranky old limes, but I know where you're. I listen. I know where you're coming from, and you're absolutely right. Right, and it's that when, especially when you're young,
Yeah.
you're that idea of living forever, that raw sexuality, that thrall that there's nothing or no one that you can't have, like, because you're hypnotic, you're magnetic,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? It's something that, it's just an incredible trait. But I think as the older I get, there's a line from Interview with a Vampire,
Yes.
and
Another
I
brilliant
don't.
movie.
Another brilliant movie, absolutely brilliant. And I don't remember if it's from the books because it's been a long time since I've read the Anne Rice
Mhm.
series. But Armand Antonio Banderas
Yes.
says you don't understand how few vampires have the stamina for immortality. And I think the older I get, I understand that. Like. I mean, right now I was watching. I went to see Captain America last night, and
Huh?
there's a bit in it with the scene where the guy says, "Oh, I'm going to send you." It took one of the older characters. I'm going to send you a picture to your phone. You know how to airdrop, right? And the audience laughed, right? But dude, I'm
Yeah.
sitting there and I'm like, I don't know how to airdrop. I don't. Like, I don't like.
Yeah.
I would be that. Like, think about it. You got to keep
Yeah.
up with fashion,
Yeah.
technology, all changing trends. Right now, I'm just so fucking exhausted from the world, especially what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
When I go, I just want to pull the dirt over myself and say, "Good night. I'm out of here." Bye bye. But what a depressing note to end the show.
I know. Come on, Limes. This is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be
Oh,
warm and fuzzies with our ice creamers.
next week, next time on Cranky Old Lines. Brother, it's always a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this, and again, we really only just scratch the surface. I feel like we'll come back to vampires again another time. But for those of you out there, please, again, we need you. We need you
Yes.
to subscribe. We need you to like the videos. We need you to comment. We need you to share. And again, please, if you're enjoying what we do, please let people know. This
Yeah.
is Limes saying good night and God bless.
Yep. And this is Lauren C. Gibbs, Cool J, saying thanks for tuning in. We love you. Sincerely mean that. And have an incredible rest of your week and weekend. And just enjoy.